What's up everybody, 40 the Broadway Saiyan here and welcome back again to my YouTube channel, bringing you guys another video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. For this video, we're going to be covering the next upcoming Lost Chapters featuring the return of the Sorceress of Time, Ultimecia. Joining Ultimecia as synergy for this particular Lost Chapters is going to be Squall, Shantoto, who is our current burst character, and also Paine, and Paine is going to be getting a realization for her returning EX weapon that is going to be featured on the banner. We're going to be touching up on exactly what Ultimecia's LD weapon does, and as well as what Paine's EX realization does. I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on those characters in particular. We're also going to be touching up on the banner a little bit and how I feel overall about the banner. We're also going to be covering the Chaos difficulty boss fight, which is going to be featuring the return of those Death Gaze type enemies called Effect. And then afterwards, like I've been doing for all of my videos moving forward, we're going to be doing a Let's Play, and it's going to be for Ultimecia, and it's also going to be for Paine. Now, before we get started with this video, I always want to give a big thanks and shout out to Rem from the Dissidia DB for all of the lovely information that is on that website. Be sure to check out that website. It is very useful. Another shout out that I want to give out to is to Macnol and the Dissidia Info, another fantastic website for information on Dissidia Opera Omnia, as well as the Opera Omnia tracker for those of you who want to keep track of your progress throughout the game and also what party comps you use, for example, for Dimensions End. Also, a massive shout out to the Tonberry Troop for all of the lovely infographics that they create to summarize all of these different characters. And last but not least, the Final Fantasy TCC podcast, giving us Opera Omnia players a weekly podcast to step up our game in Global Opera Omnia. All right, guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about Ultimecia's return in her Lost Chapters. Sorceress of Time returns to Opera Omnia, boasting a brand new LD weapon to enhance her magical prowess. Her LD weapon at full limit break permanently increases her max brave by 30% and attack by 60%. It also grants her access to her LD ability called Shockwave Pulsar, which has a max total usage of 4. Shockwave Pulsar deals an 8-hit non-elemental magic AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack with an increased Brave damage against a single target, 200% Brave overflow, split HP damage, grants 5 stacks of Maleficium for 6 turns, and grants a brand new unique buff called Sorceress's Intervention for 10 turns, which grants her a Brave regen and an increased Brave overflow. Ultimecia's LD weapon improves her usability overall, as she now has the immediate 5 stacks from her unique buff in order to gain access to her stronger Brave and HP attacks and the plus variants of her Skill 1 and Skill 2. Recommended artifact passes for Ultimecia post her LD debut are 3 copies of Attack plus 108 and either Sorceress from the Future Boost 2-star or Max Brave plus 330. Paine receives an upgrade in the form of her returning EX weapon being granted an EX realization. At 0 out of 3, her EX ability and its plus variant are improved, now allowing the 4-hit non-elemental melee AoE Brave plus AoE HP attack to trigger twice, increases the Brave potency, and for the plus variant, improves the effects of her Wing Arts unique buff, now increasing all allies' initial Brave, Max Brave, attack and defense by 40%, and lowering all enemies' initial Brave, Max Brave, attack and defense by 20%. At 1 out of 3, Paine gets a permanent increase for her Max Brave and attack. 2 out of 3 allows Paine to start the quest with 3 stacks of Dress Sphere for 6 turns and Wing Arts for 6 turns. She also auto-inflicts Status Break on all enemies for 5 turns at the start of every wave. Finally, 3 out of 3 further improves her EX ability and its plus variant by increasing the Brave potency and now recovers 1 usage of her Skill 1 break attack up to its initial values. While Dress Sphere is active, Paine gains access to her Brave Attack plus plus, which is a 3-hit non-elemental melee single target Brave attack. While Wing Arts is active, Paine's Brave attack and its variants change into Triple Cut plus, which is a 6-hit non-elemental melee single target Brave attack, and her her HP attack changes to HP attack plus, which is a 3-hit non-elemental melee single target brave plus single target HP attack with a 120% brave overflow. The E-type sphere unlocked from this EX weapon is called Weak Attack Up Down All, which increases the party's attack by 5% and lowers all enemies' attack by 10% for 3 turns when dealing weakness brave damage. Recommended artifact passives post Paine's EX Realization are 3 copies of Attack plus 108 and either Gullwing Warrior Boost 2-star or Max Brave plus 330. Alright guys, so now that we've gone ahead and gone over what both Ultimecia and Paine get with this Lost Chapters, what are my overall thoughts about both these characters? So Ultimecia had a lot of hype behind her when she first came out, and rightfully so, because she was a very powerful magic damage dealer with a lot of offensive utility such as gravity and having really powerful debuffs, and not to mention her EX ability was so strong back then because what it did is it did a lot of damage, and then afterwards Ultimecia was literally given 3 consecutive turns, and that first turn gives her a free ability usage. So she was a massive powerhouse back during the early days of Chaos when she first came out. Now, as time went on, obviously she started to fall off a bit. One of the things that really hampered her down with later Chaoses was her damage output, even with artifacts and summon boards, just wasn't quite there. But now that she has character boards, her damage output is going to be significantly better because now her skill 1, skill 2, and EX are going to be getting those nice upgrades. And one of the things about her LD weapon that I really like the most is after she uses it, she immediately has 5 stacks of those Maleficium unique buff. And the cool thing about that is that right after she does that, she'll have access to her HP attack plus, she's going to have access to her better brave attack, and she's also going to have access to the better versions of her skill 1 and skill 2, particularly for the skill 2, because the skill 2 hits AoE and puts that nice debuff on enemies. So that is the cool thing that she got out of that, because one of the things that was kind of awkward about Ultimecia is that you literally would have to waste like 2 to 3 turns just getting those stacks up before she could really get things going. So she started off as kind of hampered down a bit, and then she kind of gets things going. But with the LD, she can immediately get things going. So it definitely solidifies her as a very valuable magic DPS unit, having that offensive utility coming from gravity and coming from the debuffs, and as well as coming from those 3 consecutive turns that she gets after she uses that EX ability. Now Paine, on the other hand, was quite strong too when she first came out. She was like a jack of all trades, melee ranged damage dealer, because her skill 1 is melee and her skill 2 is ranged. And then what she did was she had a stacking buff, and then she also had another unique buff that applied an aura to the party and also applied an aura to the enemies, which I thought was really cool. And then let's not forget, she also had status break, which was a unique debuff. So she had all these different things. And the cool thing that I see about Paine is that because she was only having access to 2 unique buffs and then afterwards 1 unique debuff, she was actually a pretty versatile party member to put on your team. Now, I know that when she first got her EX Realization on JP, there was a lot of disappointment with the EX Realization and also why she did not get a rework, because as time went on, just like with any other character, they tend to fall off because they either get surpassed or because content by then just requires a little bit more TLC for that particular character if you really want to use them for latter Chaos stages. So if we take a look at her EX Realization, it improved her EX ability. It does allow her to start off the quest by having 3 stacks of Dress Sphere, which is really good because that way all she needs to do is just drop 1 skill, and then afterwards she's at 5 where you want her to be, and then you have access to her wing arts right away. So you're taking advantages of the positive auras and the negative auras that is affecting the enemies. And then let's not forget, every time a battle starts, she is automatically dropping that status break. So she's able to really, disrupt enemies' statistics right off the bat by just having her. But one of the things, I guess, for me, looking at her EX Realization, one of the things that I felt like was lacking was maybe some more overflow or something like that. I do like that she gets a free skill, or not a free skill usage, a ability recovery for her skill 1, which is really cool that she gets that. So then that way she has access to that more so often. But it really did look like she could have gotten a little bit more. But besides, despite all of that, I will say that Paine will still have her uses. She's still going to be a pretty decent character if you want to actually build her up. One of the cool things about characters that only have access right now to EX Plus is that they're not necessarily too I guess, resource-wise expensive to build because EX now can drop a little bit easier. There's also other ways of obtaining them through, like, you know, the token shop that we now have that features all of them. So Paine would be like a decent slot-in character if you're looking for like a versatile unit that deals 2 different types of brave damage and also has 2 different unique buffs, one that stacks, one that applies an aura both to the party and enemies, and then having a powerful debuff. So overall, I say she is a good, decent character. Obviously, there's going to be better, but if you're looking for somebody that is like a hybrid type of like a buffer slash debuffer with some pretty good auras, then Paine might be the character for you. Which brings us to the banner. So this banner is going to be featuring Squall's EX weapon. So Squall getting featured like literally right off the bat after he just got his burst in LD. It's also going to have Ultimecia's gear, which is pretty cool, and it's going to have Paine's gear, and it's also going to have Shantoto's gear minus her LD. So Shantoto's burst is going to be on this banner as well. So if you missed out on it on its initial release, it's also going to be on here. So the value that this banner brings, particularly in, you know, Ultimecia and Paine, is if you're looking for characters that have strong debuffs, looking for a character that has, you know, consecutive turns, being able to be turn efficient, and also having some pretty decent longevity now with a really powerful LD, then this might be the banner for you. But if you take a look at your resources and you're like, I think I already have this in some sort of way with this character, or, you know, I think I'm gonna, you know, hold off and wait for this character to come out, then it's a banner that you might want to consider passing on. But it's all really dependent nowadays where we know regarding how your roster looks like, regarding how your resources look like, and also what characters you're going to be looking to pull for really hard in the future. So take a look at all of that, and then afterwards tell yourself, if do I value Paine and Ultimecia that much? And if you do, maybe this is the banner for you, and if you don't, then you could safely pass on this banner. All right, guys, well, that is going to be it as far as like my thoughts for the banner, as well as the 2 characters that essentially got some upgrades with this lost chapter. So now the next thing we're going to be doing is taking a look at that chaos difficulty boss fight, as well as my recommendations on the chaos challenge, and then afterwards we're going to go to that Let's Play for Ultimecia and Paine. The Chaos difficulty boss fight for this lost chapter features the return of the Death Gaze type enemies called Effect. Unlike the original Chaos fight, this one will only have 2 waves. The first wave will feature a pair of SAM-08Gs. These bosses are fairly straightforward, and you generally only have to watch out for their store ability and their AoE cannon blow, which can inflict paralysis. The wave with the effect bosses have no resistances and weaknesses and have only an immunity to the confusion debuff. Just like their original Chaos fight, the biggest thing to watch out for is when they use Aqua Power, which cleanses all debuffs except Framed, massively recovers their Brave, and applies a Brave damage reduction. You will need to make sure to Brave shave them during this in order to avoid losing a party member to a massive HP attack. Characters who possess gravity-based abilities such as Ultimecia, Amiditelian, Charlotta, Exdeath, Gilgamesh, and Bartz can be very useful to counteract Aqua Power. Because of their lack of resistances and weaknesses, a wide variety of party comps can be used for the regular Chaos fight. Bringing an Imperil Enchant character can be helpful in order to maximize damage output. As far as the actual Chaos Challenge fight, it is very possible to be able to do it without Ultimecia's LD weapon, as she is still fairly strong without it. Another thing to point out is that both Shantoto and Squall are synergy for this Lost Chapters, which gives you access to 2 characters for the Chaos Challenge who have access to Burst and LD, provided you have those weapons in your roster. Paine, while not nearly as strong as her other synergy counterparts for this Lost Chapters, can still do a fantastic job with her status break debuff and her auras coming from her wing arts. Just keep in mind that none of the synergy bring any support healing, so running Alexander as your summon can be ideal if you're looking for some sort of HP regeneration to keep your party alive. Alright guys, so here we are with the Let's Play, or How to Play, Ultimecia and Paine, you know, for the upcoming Lost Chapters. So, starting off with Paine because she's going first. So remember, if you fully realize this character, she's going to be automatically dropping her Status Break debuff, which is a unique debuff that lowers attack, max Brave, initial Brave, and defense, and also speed. And then at the same time, she's going to be having 6 turns of her Wing Arts, which applies those positive auras to your party, increasing their stats, and also furthering furthering lowering the stats of the enemy. So she drops stats, you know, like crazy. And then afterwards, she has 3 stacks of Dress Sphere, which for every stack it adds like an effect. For example, you know, if you have it at like 3 stacks, it's going to be, you know, raising defense. You have it all the way at 5 stacks, it's also going to be raising attack. And then when you have it at 5 stacks, she's going to get access to like the better version of her skill. So, you know, generally what you want to do here in this sense, what I like to do is take a look at the situation, be like, all right, if there's 1 enemy, I'm going to go right into skill 1. If there's 2, I'm probably going to go with skill 2. So we're just going to go ahead and go with skill 2 here in this case. There we go. And then one of the things, like I was saying about like Paine, right? When she first got this realization is, I know people were hoping she would get a rework because, for example, like as you could see for her skill 2, it does AoE Brave, but then it does a single target attack. I think it would have been nice if there was some sort of splash damage just to make Paine, you know, a little bit more damage efficient. But, you know, she's still not bad. She's still not that bad of a character. Now, going into Ultimecia, prior to getting her LD, generally the rotation would be you would like use skill 1 like twice, or you know, go skill 1 and then afterwards keep building the stacks with her skill with her HP attack plus. But now, since we now have access to the LD, she immediately gets 5 stacks of Maleficium, which is what we're going to do here. So now Ultimecia is going to benefit from those 5 stacks because she's going to have access to the better versions of her abilities. Not only that, but we also now get access to a brand new unique buff that further increases her Brave Overflow and also gives her a Brave regen. So it gives her a little bit of what do you call it? Like you know, self-sufficiency as far as like Brave battery goes. Okay, so now we are going back to Paine here. So Paine again is pretty straightforward. You could always use triple slash in case like, you know, she's getting targeted. So she's getting targeted by B, but since, you know, B is not going to be going until the next turn, I don't really need to rely on that. You can also use her HP attack plus if you want to keep her longevity going. Generally, I like to use that if I'm running short on skills and I want to conserve some for another wave, or I use that if, like, let's say I'm running her with like a battery, so like she gets batteried and I'm like, you know what, if she's batteried, I can just go ahead and, you know, just use HP attack plus. But in this case, you know, just for the video, we're going to go ahead and use status break. There we go. All right, so now with Ultimecia, since we have those 5 stacks coming from the LD, we could actually just go into the plus versions of her skill. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and go into the plus version of her skill 2. This is her more powerful skill here. There we go. And then with Paine, we're going to go ahead and use her triple slash since she's getting targeted by both. All right, and then for Ultimecia, let's just go ahead and take a look at her skill 1 here. So if you guys are familiar with her, we've seen this before. You know, it has more Brave hits and does more damage, especially now that she has character boards. Not to mention Paine has character boards now too, which is very, very helpful. All right, and now we have access to her EX. So for those of you that haven't seen this, we're going to go ahead and use this. And no, I am not going to use her burst because Global is not going to get her burst yet, but she does get a burst, as you can see right here later on. All right, so here is her EX. So right after she uses it, she gets 3 consecutive turns. The first 2 are free turns. The first turn of the free turn gives her a free skill usage, but remember, she does not get a free LD usage because those free turns, or those free skill usage does not apply to LD abilities. So you can either go into her C65, but generally what most people like to do is go right into her skill 2 because it does hit AoE and it does hit pretty hard and applies that nice debuff for 6 turns. And then afterwards from here, depending on the situation, you could go skill 1, or you could go into HP attack plus if you're trying to, you know, preserve her longevity. Because even with the LD, Ultimecia's longevity is, you know, it's still kind of one of her weaknesses because it's very, very tempting to make this character run out of steam just because of how many turns she can get quite often. So one of the things that you could do with Ultimecia, if you like want to get her accelerated a little bit faster, is run her with somebody like Selfie, because Selfie's EX complements her, so then that way she has easier access to it. She can reach it faster. But for this case, we're going to go ahead and use skill 1. All right, and then afterwards, we can just go ahead and skill 1 again because we have plenty of uses at this point. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and use Paine's EX here. And her EX does trigger twice, but as you could see, you know, that's why people were kind of expecting, oh, maybe she should get a little bit more, you know, from the EX Realization, just because she got decent upgrades with it, but kind of felt like she could have gotten more. And I do agree with that she could have gotten a little bit more. So this is pretty much going to be how to play them. Hopefully this demonstration helps you guys out. I'm not going to be finishing this because the whole purpose of this was just to give you guys an idea of how to play these characters, especially for those of you that aren't familiar with Ultimecia or Paine, because you may have started Opera Omnia, you know, a little bit later down the line. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned for the next one, and mahal, guys.